At WGSN, we spend our lives identifying, verifying, and forecasting trends. We are the bold ones who don't just track the past and extrapolate it into the future, but actively forecast what is coming next, tomorrow and beyond. It sounds like fascinating work, and it is, but it's also not easy to get right. And at WGSN, we consistently get these forecasts right. We've been forecasting trends for hundreds of brands around the world for over 20 years, in the fastest and most unpredictable of industries, namely fashion. Over the years, we've expanded into many other sectors, making WGSN the #1 trend forecaster in the world today. And what we have learned over the years is that in the complex world we live in, the trends that have resonance and build real momentum are born from many disparate factors coming together. And that's why we use our own STEPIC methodology as a foundation for all of our trend forecasting. Let me take you through the first of those letters. We track and unpack the drivers of change in society and technology. That's the S and the T. We understand the environmental, economic, and political challenges on a global scale. And that, as you may notice, is a pretty standard PEST framework. It's important to get right. Our methodology relies heavily on high-quality research and data analysis, and particularly on understanding all of the global nuances. But it's not an unusual way to look at the world. Where we differ at WGSN is we then add a deep industry context. That's the I in STEPIC. And this comes from our experts, who apply their domain knowledge and insight into ensuring our forecasts appreciate industry-specific context, history, and dynamics. But this is still only part of the picture, because the C in STEPIC stands for culture and creativity, and these are the most volatile and sensitive inputs to appreciate. It's only through our expertise in our fashion roots that we've really been able to master them. Culture and creativity inform the very concept, aesthetic, and design of a trend, the color and texture of a product. What we have learned is that it is only by synthesizing all of these inputs that we can truly capture the subtlety and complexity of the world which future consumers will inhabit and the trends which will resonate most strongly with them. So we can not only anticipate but also answer the questions. Why this product? Why this innovator? Why this packaging? Why this and not that? And now by combining our STEPIC methodology with increasing amounts of data, behavioral, social, e-commerce, search, and more, we are able to become even more specific with our trend forecasting across more and more industries. Like I said, forecasting is definitely fascinating, but there's a lot more to it than meets the eye.
All right, let's kick off then. And again, a very warm welcome to everyone for joining today's webinar. So we are in listening only mode, but you can drop your question in the chat box. We'll try to address your questions either at the end of this webinar if we have a bit of time, or we'll contact you after. Digital transformation is yielding vast quantities of data, which offers opportunities for business, human well-being, and the environment, if and when used effectively. Data has become so prevalent for an economy that in April last year, for example, the Chinese government made it official. The authorities now recognize data as a new factor of production. For companies, large and small, around the world, their future depends on using data effectively. So our job today is to inspire you and share how WGSN using data to forecast trends. Our job every day is to leverage that intel to help businesses like yours around the world to design, build, buy, and position the right product in front of the right customer at the right time. As you know, we've primarily been working with manufacturers, brands, offline and online retailers, agencies, amongst others. Our unique methodology has proven effective across multiple categories, such as fashion, lifestyle, beauty, food and drinks, consumer electronics, and many more. And today, you're lucky we will share a bit of our trade secrets. So the first secret is that there is no magic in trend forecasting. It relies first on our team and network, industry experts located around the world who are observing and tracking macro changes that will influence consumers' values and behaviors. Our team of experts includes researchers, data engineers, editors, consultants. On any given day, we are collecting millions of data points on consumers, products through social, e-commerce, and other sources. Over the last 20 years, we have developed influencer maps per category that allow us to determine with precision the stage of a trend and whether or not it will hit mass. So in today's agenda, we will cover why data is important for your business. We will look at how we use data as a forecasting tool. And finally, we'll use one particular examples on how one of our clients has forecast the future effectively with data. So it is my pleasure today to introduce you to two of our experts. First, Jess. So Jess is a lead consultant. She's based in our Hong Kong office. She has design, research, and innovation project experience across Asia Pacific. She has an interesting background in psychology and design and adopts a hybrid qualitative and quantitative approach to gather and translate insights into product design and brand direction. A portfolio includes work for multinational Fortune 500 businesses and emerging local players. And will be joining us as well, Charlie. So Charlie is a trend expert, and she's heading our APAC success team. She has an in-depth understanding of trend forecasting. She's inspired and advised clients across EMEA and APAC over the last 7 years. Charlie helps clients understand consumer shifts and translate trends into product developments and buying decisions. She's a frequent speaker to major trade shows and conferences around Asia Pacific. Jess will now take over and lead us through this presentation. Jess.
Thank you very much, Mark. Happy Friday, everyone, and thank you very much for joining this webinar. Well, knowing that in the audience, we have designers, we have buyers, merchandisers, brand managers from a variety of different industries. I know you're in fashion, you're in beauty, in retail, in FMCG. I want to share a little bit about why businesses see value in data and the different kinds of business decisions you can make with data. If you're in product design, of course, understanding your customer is the top priority. What do your customers value and care about? How relevant is a specific trend or event to your customer? At the same time, you want to identify product preferences when you're doing design. Why, when, how do your customers use your products? What are their design preferences? You also want to spot emerging trends. What are the new topics, new trend signals, concepts that are emerging in your customer group? You want to measure the adoption of trends, meaning you want to know what trend has a more significant adoption in the market. What trend should you prioritize in design? And finally, you may want to validate your early concepts because what does your customer think about your new product design direction? On the other hand, if you're in buying, in merchandising, usually you're the one who is a little bit more commercially driven, more data driven, more quant focused in a team in a business. You may want to optimize your trend facing, meaning that you want to know when is the best time to launch a trend. How can your launch plan reflect consumer demand? You also want to keep track of what your competitors are doing. How are your competitors arranging their range architecture? How and when are they launching or backing out of trends? Optimizing the range plan and range architecture is super key. Identifying what does core mean to your customer? What does seasonal trend mean to your customer? What kinds of shapes, colors, materials are working or not working in your market? At the same time, tracking the life cycle of trends, meaning what's emerging, what's peaking, what's maturing in the market. And on pricing as well, optimizing your price architecture. How can you optimize discounting, markup, markdown strategies in the market? If you're in branding and marketing, if you're the founder of a business, of course, we always start from a consumer. We want to understand their attitudes, what they value, what they care about, what they prioritize. At the same time, you want to do a little bit of benchmarking. You want to know how your customers perceive your brand compared to your competitors in the market. And to more downstream strategies as well, optimizing your marketing, your distribution, what trends, touch points, strategies are resonating the most with your customer, and also working with KOLs, with your influencers. Who are your customers' influencers? How and where do they get inspiration and trend validation? Annually, a lot of brands do brand health surveys. So how do your customers think and perceive your brand? What are your strengths and weaknesses? To answer the question simply, why data? The first reason is hyper-targeted, because great products and strategies are always consumer-centric and targeted to your market. For example, you want to learn more about 20 to 30-year-old female Indonesian consumers with a propensity to buy a specific type of product, like sneakers, footwear, fashion. You can get accurate and relevant insights with data. We at WGSN, we use data to understand trends with relevance to very specific markets, demographic cohorts, and behavioral propensities. At the same time, data is measurable. With data, we track the rise and maturing of trends, which enables us to understand trend adoption in your target markets. We're able to identify what's emerging, what's maturing, what's hitting mass, and that which drives WGSN's trend forecasting. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about our methodology. So data as a trend forecasting tool. Data is our friend. Well, some companies have a preference for qualitative data. Some companies have a preference for quantitative data. At WGSN, data is fundamentally woven into our trend forecasting methodology. Our approach is hybrid. We make use of both qualitative data and quantitative data in our trend analysis. By qualitative data, we're referring to data from interviews, focus groups, ethnographic studies, and with quantitative data, we're referring to data from surveys, from social media, from e-commerce. Data is only sensible in context, and WGSN is able to analyze these types of data with an informed point of view. The reason is because what's so special about WGSN? Yes, we have a large content team, experts with industry experience. At the same time, WGSN also has a data science team, a team of data analysts, which means with the insights from our data experts and content experts, we're able to recommend product design directions, buying and merchandising directions, brand and marketing directions. I'm going to pass over the time to Charlie, who is going to share a little bit more about how WGSN marries qualitative data and quantitative data in our trend forecasts. Charlie?
Thank you, Jess, and hi, everybody. So like Jess said, one of the ways that we at WGSN can bring these two types of data together with our expert understanding of future trends is through a report like this one on cozy living from Lifestyle and Interiors. So cozy living is a commercial trend that shows no sign of slowing down. And here we can use social media and e-commerce data to track and identify current focus points on the cozy living trend and forecast its future development so that you can make really informed decisions on how to invest. So over the past few years, cozy living has become a strong theme and a commercial success story across market levels, industries, consumer demographics. And according to social media data, the trend grew throughout 2020 with rises across all market segments, and it's evolving into new areas for 2021 and beyond. Our social media data allows us to leverage real-time social listening in order to identify trends, keywords, and sentiments on social media. Our e-commerce data covers online inventories, price and promo, search and product and detail information. So this report includes e-com data from retailers across both the UK and the US, including businesses like John Lewis, IKEA, Home Depot, The Range, just to name a few. What we can do is look at all of this data and analyze how this trend is moving across market segments, so you know how to tap into the trend for your consumer or your business. We look at innovators, so that those at the beginning of the trend adoption, moving through to mass and conservative segments. So innovator and mass segments in particular really saw jumps in penetration throughout the pandemic, when the cozy living trend gained a wave of new relevance and created a lot of opportunity to update and evolve product assortments. So these innovator trends come from press, brands, and influencers. And we use an influencer map created by the WGSN trend specialist to identify global influencers from a range of sources, including designers, stylists, bloggers, retailers. Jess, if you could pop up the rest of the slide. Thank you. So what you can see here is from the keywords that are being used on social media, the topics that are more unique to innovators include things like cottagecore, grand millennial style, which is a play on millennials who are styling their homes the way a typical grandmother might, and plants, with a number of plant posts on social media increasing 67% year on year. So what we can take from this information is that for this segment, it's really key to go big on plants and merchandise them with maximalist looks. We can also take inspiration from antiques, for product development trends, providing lots of character and tapping into that grand millennial aesthetic. Next slide, please, Jess. So here we'll look at mass, and mass trends come from mass market retailers, brands, and influencers. And topics that are more unique to this mass market segment include corner of my home, small space squad, pocket of my home. And within busier posts on social media, there's an emphasis on really maximizing small space and creating these cozy corners, whether in bedrooms or home offices. And comfort is also showing growth as a keyword in online retail, particularly within rugs, mats, carpets, and runners. So therefore, to really tap into this trend for the mass market, it'll be key to merchandise products in a way that show customers how rooms can feel cozy without feeling too cluttered or constrictive. And also to think beyond conventionally cozy spaces like living rooms and bedrooms, and extend this cozy living trend into things like offices, or allowing them to create small, cozy kind of self-care nooks and zones throughout the home. And lastly, we have the conservatives. So conservative trends come from traditional retailers, brands, and influencers. And for this segment, there's really an emphasis on key items as well as specific rooms. So this group favor clean, more neutral decor and cozy touches. And we saw this reflected in retail data, where bedding sets restocks were up 144%, and blankets, bedspreads, and duvets were up across both UK and US retailers. So here it would be really important to keep the focus on these kind of cozy details and textures, merchandising them in really clean, more minimal ways, and make the bedroom in particular a key area of focus. So invest in tactile bedding sets and throws, and also look at some other trends that we're talking about at WGSN, the Scandi celebrations trend, to take this into kind of tableware and dining sets that are cozy, yet very pared back and minimalist. So there's a lot more that goes into a report like this, but I hope that gave you a little insight into how we can use our trend forecasting expertise to provide context to our data and give clear actions that are relevant to specific market segment. I'm going to pass back now to Jess, who's going to give you some more detail on the data sources that we use, what they include, and some use cases. So Jess, I'll hand back to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Charlie. Yeah, so Charlie, just now when we're talking about the cozy living trend, we have been using social media data as well as e-commerce data in informing the trend forecast. So just a little bit of an overview of the different types of data sources available at WGSN. And there are three main areas that we track. First, we have consumer data. We also have social media data. And finally, we have e-commerce data. In the following few pages, I'm going to go through in a little bit more detail why and how we use each type of data. With consumer data, we use quantitative surveys and qualitative research to extract consumer data. By quant surveys, we're referring to surveys developed to target very specific consumer demographics, and that could be age, gender, region, shopping propensity. While quant surveys usually give businesses an answer of the what. Qualitative research, on the other hand, and that includes interviews, focus groups, ethnographic studies, give us an answer to the why, and which lets us understand a little bit more about consumer psychographics to identify product preferences. With the combination of quant and qual research, we're able to identify the what and the why of certain product preferences and certain behaviors in your consumer target groups. We're also able to validate early concepts, and we will have a case study of how we're helping a brand validate their early positioning concept in the later section of this webinar. With social media data, we have access to a variety of different data sources. For example, Instagram. And in China, we have Douyin and Xiaohongshu. In terms of the methodology from the top, we can track keywords. We can also track hashtags over a period of time. And as Charlie has mentioned already, WGSN's unique selling point and what makes us different from social listening and social analytics companies is we have influencer mapping. We segment influencers into innovators, mass, and conservatives, which is how we're able to identify newly emerging trends versus maturing trends, as well as being able to customize these influencer maps for brands specific to their markets. And in terms of the use cases, we're able to spot emerging trends on social. We're able to track the life cycle of trends, when we're also able to recommend key influencers for businesses. Finally, with e-commerce data, WGSN has access to two different types of e-commerce platforms, namely marketplaces, and that means the Amazon, Tmall, Lazada, Shopee, and the likes, and also brands' own e-commerce sites as well. WGSN clients are particularly interested in three data types. From the top, we have product features, meaning that we will look into color, material, shapes. We also have data on stock level, which helps us understand when a product is launched, when a product is dropped, when a trend is launched for a particular brand. We're able to understand newness, and also on price as well. So we have pricing data. We're able to understand and track when your competitors are launching discounting or markup or markdown strategies. So use cases include, you can use these kinds of data on e-commerce retail sites to optimize your range planning, optimizing your trend facing, when to launch and pull out of a trend, as well as optimizing your price strategies. Okay, and then I'll let Mark introduce a little bit about our consultancy services here.
Great, Jess. Yeah, great presentation. Thanks, Charlie, also. So I'm sure most of you are using WGSN and read our content, and you're already enjoying it. But you may not know, but you probably would love our advisory services. So WGSN has an advisory branch that's called Mindset. Mindset delivers creative audits, bespoke research, and address unique, specific business challenges and opportunities. Launching a new product, for example, or a new collection, entering a new market, addressing a mysterious cohort of consumer that you may miss, reducing waste or improving stock management. We can help you improve your top and bottom line. So in the next few minutes, Jess will take some time to share with you an example with one of our clients, which we've helped in the beauty segment, which we've helped with the data that we've collected. Jess?
Thanks, Mark. Yes, as Mark has talked about, so we are in consultancy, so we go beyond what's on wgsn.com. We speak to clients with different data needs and we customize projects for clients, meaning that they're often hyper targeted to their customer and customer groups. We talked about the benefit of data as being measurable as well. And at WGSN's consultancy, we make sure data is actionable. And here in this first case study, we are going to present the approach and some of the outcome examples of how we have helped a beauty client launch a new product in China. And the key business goal here is to validate a positioning concept to support the launch. Let's take a look at the approach. And in WGS, and we always start from the consumer. In phase one, we understood a little bit more about the Chinese beauty consumer and their values, their psychographic requirements. After looking at some of the key requirements from a consumer point of view, we started to look at the market. So in phase two, we looked into the brand's competitors. We looked at their tone of voice, their positioning. We identified initial white space opportunities for positioning of the product. Phase three involves concept development. So we developed a few concepts that's aligned with the brand's brand DNA, their customer needs with reference to insights from phase one. We understood a little bit more about the product and regional expectations. And then in phase four, that's where the quantitative data comes in because we have a social playlist stage. With this project, we have decided to look into social data to inform our trend forecast. And this data-driven approach can actually be applied to different industries beyond fashion, like in fashion and FMCG as well. In phase five, we made strategic forecast recommendations of the most relevant positioning concept to move ahead with. In the following pages, I'm going to go through a little bit more detail of each phase and what our consultancy outputs look like. So in phase one, for consumer personas, I'm sure a lot of product designers and brand managers in the house already look into consumer insights to inform your design directions or marketing directions. And here, looking at consumer personas means we're looking into the attitudinal insights. We're looking into consumer behaviors. We're trying to understand the macro consumer trends happening in the market, particularly identifying for this project the role of beauty in the minds and eyes of that particular consumer target market we're talking about. Moving into market analysis, that's where we look into the brand's competitors. And here we analyze their key messaging, their tone of voice, and also mapping out where brands sit on key engagement mapping, understanding the latest marketing activations from brands. And these are all custom research, meaning that you won't be able to find these information on WGSN because these are customized to the competitors, the competitive market of the business. Phase three was about concept development. After developing the initial concepts, then we moved into phase four where we are testing and validating these concepts through social playlists. So you may ask, why social playlists, right? What's the value of significance of the social playlist stage? Here, what we're trying to do is we're analyzing social data. And this has enabled WGSN and the brand to validate and sense check our initial positioning concepts. What's important is it informs, with social data, it informs what's emerging, what's peaking, and what's maturing. And as a brand, you don't want to be late in the game. You don't want to be tapping into an already maturing or peaking trend concept. So here with the social playlist, we're able to identify newness in the market. What's new and emerging in terms of attitudes and sentiments towards this product. And what's great about this kind of output, it informs your senior management and it gets internal buy-in because the initial positioning concepts that we have developed together are quantifiable and measurable with data as an evidence. And finally, some page examples of the strategic outcomes, so what we call strategic forecasts, recommendations of the most relevant positioning concept to move ahead with. So in a conclusion, we have been marrying the qualitative data from the first 3 phases, from consumer persona, market analysis, together with the initial concept developments, we're able to identify measurable results from the social playlist. And finally, our consultants and our beauty experts are able to make recommendations of where the most relevant and differentiating white space opportunities are for this particular product. Overall, in terms of the approach, this approach can be applied to your business in different industries, in fashion, in FMCG, in homeware, in retail as well. We always start from the consumer, and then we move on to understanding the macro market landscape, developing concepts, and then we can use data to test and validate your insights, your directions before we make the final strategic recommendations. And that's what we do at WGSN Mindset. And I'll pass the time back to Mark to close this webinar.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Jess, again, for your presentation. So as I said at the beginning, I think for large and small companies, your future depends on using data effectively. So depending on what stage you are with your digital transformation and your leverage of data in your own business, depending on your role also, we are absolutely here to help you. So feel free to reach out to your team at WGSN, to us. We'll be happy to have a conversation in the next future. Thank you very much again for joining today. Very good weekend, and hope we'll talk very soon. Thank you.